We are about to study the process of evaporation. That is, what is evaporation? And let me just explain it to you in simple words. That is the process of conversion of water into its gaseous form, which is water vapors. The process of conversion of water into water vapor is known as evaporation. So let us now understand this with the help of an example. Say we take a beaker. In this beaker, say we add 100 ml of water. What we have taken? We have taken 100 ml of water. To this we add 2 teaspoons of salt. That is the regular common salt. And as a student of chemistry, I would recommend you to maintain a diary for yourself wherein you will add all the chemical names of the constituents that you come across. Say salt. Salt is what? Salt is sodium chloride. Yes, students, the common salt that you consume every day is chemically known as sodium chloride and it has formula. What is the formula of sodium chloride? It is NaCl. Na stands for sodium and Cl stands for chlorine. So, in 100 ml of water, you have added 2 tablespoons of NaCl and you give it a quick stir with the help of an iron rod. And what do you observe? Do you observe any change in the color of water? No, you do not observe any change in color. And can you see some of the salt particles present in water? Again, the answer is no. So, where the salt has gone? This salt has been completely dissolved. What it has? It has completely dissolved in water. So, can we get this dissolved salt back from water? Yes, students, we have a way in chemistry that we can separate salt from water. Let us see how we can obtain this dissolved salt from water. What we are going to do is we will take a Bunsen burner. This is a Bunsen burner and we have put a wire gauze over here, and over this wire gauze we have put our beaker containing the mixture of salt and water, and we will let it boil for some time till the time all of the water has been evaporated. That is, it has been converted into its gaseous form. And what will be left behind in the beaker? You will observe that salt has been left behind in the beaker while all of the water has been evaporated. So students, what we have understood with this activity? We have understood that the process of conversion of water into its vapors. The process of conversion of water into its vapor is known as evaporation. And the natural process of evaporation may take few days to evaporate from large water bodies, and this process of conversion of water takes place continuously wherever it is present. Why? Because of the heat of sunlight. It takes heat from sunlight and it is always evaporating. Okay, students? And this is the process through which we can obtain salt from water. And do you know that sea water contains a large quantity of salt, and it is obtained, the common salt that we consume every day is obtained from sea using the process of evaporation. What we do is there are shallow pits near sea water, and water is made to stand in these shallow pits, and due to the sunlight this water evaporates and these pits are left with salt in them. So students, I hope that you would have understood this concept that salt is completely soluble in water and we can get this salt from water by the process of evaporation. And what was the process of evaporation? Evaporation means the conversion of water into its vapors. Thank you for your attention. We are about to study that in some processes of separation we require more than one method in order to separate the wanted as well as the unwanted substances. So let us understand this with the help of an activity. In this activity, we have to separate a mixture of sand and salt. How we can do it? We will keep the mixture in a beaker and add some water to it and leave the beaker aside for a few minutes. These are the steps that we have to follow in this activity. Let us understand this in detail. So students, what we have taken? We have taken a mixture of sand and salt, and I think all of the students know that salt is completely soluble in water, whereas the sand is insoluble in water. So what we are going to do is we can make use of this property in order to separate the two substances from this mixture. Why do we need this? Because we know the components of sand and salt are too small and we cannot separate them by the processes that we have learnt, like hand picking. Is it even possible to pick the salt from sand? No, we cannot pick the sand or salt from this mixture because the particles are very small and each and every particle cannot be hand picked. So this process is ruled out. Then we have discussed about sieving. Again, we cannot separate sand and salt by process of sieving because the particles are very small and they will pass through the pores of the sieve or the strainer and we cannot separate them with the help of sieving. Then if we try winnowing, again the particles are too small and similar in size that they cannot be separated either by the use of winnowing. So we need another method to separate them, and we have figured out because of the property that we can make use of in separating this mixture, and this is by dissolving this mixture into water. So what we have done, let us just understand this. We have taken a beaker full of water. It has water and we have dissolved this mixture of sand and salt, and what you will observe that salt will be completely dissolved in water, whereas sand will be left. If we leave this mixture undisturbed for some time, we will observe that sand will be settled at the bottom. Why? Because sand is not soluble in water, so sand is collected at the bottom surface of the container, and we call this process as sedimentation. So students, what is the first process that we have used here is sedimentation. Why? Because the sand has settled down to the surface of the beaker and we call this process as sedimentation. Now we can separate this mixture of salty water. Now we have got salty water because all of the salt has been dissolved in water. So we can remove the salty water from sand by using the process of decantation. That is, we will slightly tilt our beaker and remove the salty water and all of the sand will be left behind in the beaker. Now what we are left with? We are left with salty water, that is salt solution in water. And everyone knows that how do we separate salt from water? Yes, everyone knows that we can separate this salt from water by the process of evaporation. We will place this beaker over a Bunsen burner by placing a wire gauze, and we can obtain this water in the form of water vapor, and all of the salt will be left behind in the beaker. But we have to introduce one more step to you, that these water vapor can be converted back into water. And how we can do it? So instead of taking it in beaker, what we are going to do is we will place a kettle and we'll place the salty water in this kettle and start heating it, and from here the steam will be coming. We will take a metal plate and over this we will place ice, that is, this plate will be very cold, and once the steam comes in contact with this metal plate, it will be condensed back into water, and this steam is converted back into water, and we will collect this pure sample of water in this beaker, and this electric kettle will be left behind with salt. So what is the fourth process that we have used, children? We have used the process of condensation. Let us understand the process of condensation once more. So students, condensation means the conversion of water vapors back to water in the liquid form. What? The conversion of water vapor back to liquid is known as condensation. And we can observe this condensation in our daily life. Have you ever observed a glass of cold water during summer? You will observe the droplets of water collected on the outer surface of the glass. From where this water has come? This water has come from our water vapor that is available in our atmosphere. Once the air comes in contact with very cold surface of glass, it will be condensed back into liquid, and you will observe the liquid droplets over the glass of water. And similarly, say if you have a container full of hot milk and you cover it with a lid, when you remove the lid, you will observe the droplets of water. From where they have come? They have come from the steam has converted back into the liquid. So this is the process of condensation.
To show evaporation and condensation taking place at the same time. Materials required: clean and dry glass jar with a lid, small piece of cotton soaked in water. Method: remove the lid from the glass jar and place a small piece of wet cotton in it. Replace the lid lightly. Place the glass jar in the sunshine for half an hour. After half an hour, you notice that tiny droplets of water are sticking to the upper inner surface of glass jar. It is because the water in the cotton changes into vapor on absorbing the heat of energy of the sun. This process of slow change of water into water vapor on absorbing heat energy is called evaporation. The water vapor on coming in contact with upper cold surface of glass jar condenses to form tiny droplets of water.
So children, and how many steps or processes we have used in order to separate the mixture of sand and water, sand and salt? We have used the process of sedimentation, then we have used decantation, evaporation, and finally condensation. So you can see that in order to separate substances, we can use one or more processes for the separation. We are about to discuss a very interesting topic, which is, can water dissolve any amount of substance into it? But before discussing it, we will try to recall the activity or recall the topic that we have covered in the previous session. So in the previous activity, we tried to separate a mixture of sand and salt, and for this we dissolved this mixture into water, and water was dissolved into and salt was dissolved into water, whereas sand was separated by the process of sedimentation, decantation, and finally filtration, whereas salt was recovered from water using the process of evaporation. And our friend Paheli also did the same experiment, and she was confused about the amount of salt that was recovered from water after the process of evaporation, and she was confused that she has dissolved 2 tablespoons of salt, which is called NaCl in its chemical name is NaCl. So she had dissolved 2 tablespoons of NaCl, but what she recovered was too less quantity, and she was really surprised at this amount of salt that was obtained. So it was clearly the case of missing salt. So we have this mystery that where is this missing salt? So we will try to explain this using this activity number 8 to our friend Paheli. So let us move ahead with this activity. In this activity, what we are going to do is, we will take a beaker. In this beaker, we will take half cup of water. We will add 1 teaspoon of salt and we will give it a quick stir using a glass rod, and you will observe that this 1 teaspoon of salt is completely dissolved in water. Now we will take 1 more teaspoon of salt and try to dissolve it in water, and we will observe that this salt has also been dissolved into it. So we will keep repeating this step until this water cannot dissolve any more amount of salt. So children, this step where the water cannot dissolve any more amount of salt in it is known as saturated solution. So what is a saturated solution, children? So saturated solution is a solution wherein no more salt can be dissolved into it. So this is a hint for the mystery of missing salt, that the amount of water that was present in the mixture where she added salt and water, this amount of water was too less to dissolve all of this salt. So some of the salt has been there left with the sand. So so the amount of salt that was recovered after evaporation was only the amount of salt that water was able to dissolve in it. I hope that you would have understood. I will repeat it once more so that you understand this properly. So children, our question was the mystery of missing salt, that is how much salt was recovered by Paheli after evaporation. So children, only that amount of salt was recovered that this amount of salt was able to dissolve in it. Only the amount of salt that was dissolved in the water was recovered by evaporation, whereas the extra amount of salt which was not dissolved in water was still there with the sand particles because it was not dissolved in the salt. So this is why the amount of salt that was recovered after evaporation was less than 2 teaspoons. So I hope that you would have understood this really well. So let us now move ahead towards next activity, wherein you will learn that if this amount of salt which water is able to dissolve in it, can this be altered? Can we alter its ability to dissolve salt in it? So let us again carry out an activity. Again we will take a beaker. In this beaker we will take half cup of water and we will try to dissolve salt, 1 teaspoon of salt into it. We will try to give it a quick stir using this iron rod, and we will observe that 1 teaspoon of salt dissolves in it completely. Then we will keep repeating the steps until we reach our saturated solution. Saturated solution was the solution wherein no more salt can be dissolved. So can we increase or can we increase the amount of salt that it can dissolve in it? Yes, we can do it. Why? That we can do it. And how we can do it? We can do it by heating it. We will take a burner, a stand, and we will try to heat it. And now we will observe that even if you add more quantity of sodium chloride or salt into it, it will be able to dissolve in it. So students, we can increase this ability of water to dissolve more amount of salt by heating it, that is by raising the temperature. Okay students, now we have one more activity wherein we will discover whether water can dissolve equal amounts of different substances into it. Equal amounts of different substances. For this, we will conduct one more activity. So the first step of this activity is we will take 2 glasses. and in each of the glass we will take half cup of water. Now in first cup we will add a teaspoon of salt and stir it until the salt dissolves in it. Then we will keep on adding more salt, 1 teaspoon at a time, till we reach our saturation point, till the solution saturates, that is till the point where it cannot dissolve any more salt into it. Now we have obtained our saturated salt solution. Say in a half glass of water you are able to dissolve 7 teaspoons of salt. You will record your observation in a table like this, wherein first column denotes the substance that you are dissolving in water and the second column denotes the quantity, that is the number of spoons that are dissolved in water. In the second glass, you have taken half cup of water. Now you will add 1 teaspoon of sugar into it. You will add sugar into it. You will add 1 teaspoon sugar, stir it and it will dissolve completely. You will take 1 more teaspoon until you obtain a saturated solution of sugar. Because there is a limited amount that water can dissolve. Say you were able to dissolve 4 teaspoons of sugar into it. So you can observe the difference that the same amount of water can dissolve different amount of liquids. That is, it's not like that you will be able to dissolve 7 teaspoon of sugar and 7 teaspoon of salt in same amount of water. So water can dissolve unequal amounts of substances into it depending upon its properties. For example, it can dissolve say 7 teaspoon of salt in half cup of water, whereas it was only able to dissolve 4 teaspoon of sugar in same quantity of water. So students, in this session we have understood that what is a saturated solution. That is the solution where you cannot dissolve any more substance into it. Second thing that we have learned in this session is that you can increase the point of saturation by increasing the temperature. That is, if you have obtained your saturated solution of salt and you start heating it, it will be able to dissolve some more amount of salt into it. And finally, we have learned that water can dissolve unequal amounts of different substances depending upon the property of the substance. So students, I hope that you would have understood the concept of saturation really well. Thank you for your attention.